Namibia is set to open a consulate general in Lubumbashi city in the Democratic Republic of Congo to strengthen bilateral relations and, of course, foster more facilitation of trade between the two countries. The DRC and Namibia, of course, have deep historical ties as members of the Southern African Development Community. Welcome to Diplomatic Communique. Tonight we are focusing on the DRC, and we are joined by its ambassador from Namibia to DRC, Congo, Simeon Uulenga, to unpack the relations between the two countries. Very good evening to you, and thank you very much for making time out to join us, Ambassador. If we look at the ties that Namibia is enjoying with the Democratic Republic of Congo, of course, we go way back in terms of the historical connection between the two countries. Can you perhaps unpack the historical context for us first before we discuss economics?
Well, historical context, Namibia and DRC have their relation that started a long time ago, before Namibia's independence. Then Zaire supported Namibia as part of the African group. They supported Namibia for independence. This support was expressed in form of voting in favor of resolution for the liberation of Namibia or for the independence of Namibia. They also provided sometimes financial support to Namibia, and that is the support they read at. But also, immediately after Namibia's independence, Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of Congo, recognized Namibia's independence, and diplomatic relations were established.
If one looks and it reflects back at the relationship that Namibia has, of course, with DR Congo as well, is that we had provided a lot of support politically also during the civil unrest in the country. It's been one of those countries that has been plagued by political unrest for the longest time. Can you perhaps just reflect on, particularly for the young ones that are tuning in right now, in terms of the support that we have been providing politically and military support to the DR Congo since its inception of our diplomatic ties?
Yes, Namibia, Angola, and DRC, then as part of SADC, provided military support to a newly government in the Democratic Republic of Congo that was led by President Laurent Kabila. Here, the purpose was to stabilize the region, to help to express our solidarity with the rest of Africa, because we know Africa helped us. Namibia intervened together with other countries. It was a meaningful contribution to the DRC because this was maximum sacrifice. The Congolese appreciate this. When I move around in the DRC, people express their feelings, their appreciations to Namibia for that support.
And that support, of course, also included quite a number of Congolese also being accommodated in refugee camps and so forth. And we know, of course, the repatriation of some of those individuals have been going on for many years. Can you reflect a little bit on that? And I don't want to say, it's always difficult to talk about immigration when you're talking about a fellow African, but just that movement of people between the two countries and, of course, that support thereof, if you can reflect a little bit briefly on that.
Yes, as a result of the war that was in the Democratic Republic of Congo then, many people have to fled their country. Some of them found themselves here in Namibia as refugees. Some of them came on their own. They joined institutions in Namibia, like students. They started going to universities. Some were small kids, grow up here. They went to secondary school. And today, they have probably become permanent residents, or if not citizens. They are living here in Namibia. And if you talk to them, they have really feel the support that they have received from the Namibian society. We still have this problem.
And that's what I wanted to get to next. I mean, of course, even though there was stability in most of the Democratic Republic of Congo, there are still areas that have historically been plagued by conflict and continue to do so. What do you think are some of the contributing factors why, even as a region, as SADC, we cannot find a lasting solution for the civil unrest in those parts of the DRC?
Well, the reason why they cannot find a solution to the DRC, I think this solution, apart from SADC as a region, mainly depend on the Congolese themselves. The problem of the DRC depends on how they are organized as a state. Since the war, there has been the institutions of government have been weakened, and government has not been able to reach out effectively to all parts of the country. That's why you see the emergence of rebel movements. Some say, for example, that they became rebels because they had to form groups to defend themselves because of the absence of the state. These are allegations that are made by some of these rebels.
And what we see that's continuously being made, if you look at particularly not only in the press, but I think the global perception that this brings is that, I mean, can Africa really handle its own problems? We're continuously being plagued by civil unrest, of course, in DRC. We've had a long-standing issue in Somalia, Sudan, the borderland regions. Now we have got about 4 coups that just took place in 1 year in West Africa, and really brings the question around, can Africans handle their own problems without the interference of the global north or by Western countries? So what's your position on that?
Yeah, it's a complicated question. Actually, why Africa cannot handle own problems. I think there are some weakness in our institutions. We have human resources, but we lack financial resources to attend to our own problems. It's the same with the issues of hunger. Security cannot be solved, or insecurity cannot be solved without financial resources.
But even where we come together, though, I mean, you look at ECOWAS, you look at the Southern African Development Community, even where we come together, it always seems like we can't agree to move in one unified direction. For example, especially in as far as when there is some sort of an unrest in the region. Right now, I'm just using the example of ECOWAS. 4 coups, but not a single intervention militarily from that side. And when we saw what happened where Western countries are involved, the military intervention comes swift, in some cases successfully. What's your thoughts on that? Is that a way to go, or should you rather just sit back and hand it over to the UN to take care of all of these flare-ups?
No, something is being done. Africa has, the AU particularly, has in place institutions that attend to problems. We Africans now want African solution to African problems, and you see that the AU has now adopted some mechanism that if a country is found to be in wrong hands, if there is no implementation of constitutional rules, then the African Union take measures against specific countries that want to go away from these procedures.
But they have to agree, though. That's the challenge. Even
yes,
if
nobody
disagreed.
Nobody disagreed. For example, to take sanctions or to expel somebody, nobody disagreed. There is no problem in that. I think the problem comes into enforcing those decisions on the ground.
Quite an interesting, of course, revelation before I go for the short break is, particularly also dealing with some of the civil unrest, is that some scholars believe that we have looked at certain areas, geopolitical areas globally, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's here, certain pockets of Latin America, and said, look, when the unrest and the issues are going to go on because of how complex they are, and perhaps we might be suffering from fatigue and we say, it's it's business as usual. This part is fighting, the other parts are fine. Let's move on with those. Would it be a fair argument to say that we might be suffering from civil unrest fatigue for certain parts of the world, and we have accepted that there will always be some sort of unrest in those parts, particularly DRC, Somalia, Sudan, Middle East?
Well, I would say it's natural for human beings to differ, but we will not be having this problem forever. If we transform ourselves into some level of democratic rules, if we have accountability to our people, if we are transparent with our people, they see what we are doing, they understand what are our problems, I believe these things will come to an end. But where there is no communication with the populations, that is how now misunderstanding come in.
Ambassador, it's quickly time for us to take a break before we continue with our program. Thank you so much for tuning in to Diplomatic Communique. Of course, we've been focusing on the geopolitical unrest in the region and our support of bilateral relations with DRC. But outside of that, of course, there's a large economic cooperation between the two countries as we trade fish, beef, and of course also supporting services in mining to that country. When we come back, we'll discuss trade and economic diplomacy. Stay with us. Welcome back to Diplomatic Communique, where we focus, of course, on the foreign services of our country and speak to our heads of mission. This time around tonight, we're focusing on the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I'm joined by the Ambassador Simeon Uulenga to just unpack the relations between the two countries. Ambassador, a bit earlier on, we were focusing a little bit more on the geopolitical situation in the country and the relations between the two. But outside of that, DRC still has a functioning trade facilitation with its neighboring countries and the rest of the region as well, where we are, of course, also exporting quite a number of items there. Let's reflect a little bit on that. What are some of the major items that we're trading with the Democratic Republic of Congo at this point in time?
Well, concerning our trade with the Democratic Republic of Congo, our main export, or number one export to the DRC, is fish, the horse mackerel. The DRC import, I'm told, almost 90% of our horse mackerel. So this is an important market for our fish. The DRC also import salt from Namibia. They import beef from Namibia. Other small products are also imported from Namibia to the DRC, even some agricultural products.
Well, of course, with much of the concern also, if you look at the trade facilitation between the two countries, has always been, the safety of the goods that go into the country. It's more connected with logistics, being able to export the profits that come from there, etc. Are these still major concerns, or is the facilitation of trade between the two countries as smooth as it can get?
Yeah, trade facilitation between Namibia and DRC and within and along the Walvis Bay Lubumbashi corridor has not been easy. Not easy because sometimes due to language barriers, sometimes due to different legal systems, different approaches to customs, and also different systems. I would say, the DRC is a country in a way to stabilizing itself. Sometimes systems do not really work as they're supposed to be.
But that's perhaps an opportunity for Namibian business?
Well, opportunities for Namibian business are there in the DRC.
To perhaps assist also within the trade facilitation challenges that
and Namibia, particularly when it comes to the Walvis Bay Lubumbashi corridor, Namibia is the major player because we host the secretariat, as you know,
with the Wolfish Bay Corridor Group?
Yes, for all the years we have been hosting this secretariat, and we convene meetings, and we are helping both DRC and Zambia and our exporters and traders to come together and have exchanges on how to make this trade facilitation more smoother. Namibia really play an active role there. But what is inside the country is, of course, an issue, a sovereign issue of another country. And we still reach out to this country.
We know, of course, quite a lot of work being done by the Wolfish Bay Corridor Group as well, since they have started in terms of expanding those trading corridors for Namibia. I know there are a number of big conferences and engagement also coming up next year from an African perspective that WBCG will be hosting. But how important has the work that they have been doing been for the economic development for Namibia, and perhaps also this big plan around being the logistics hub for those landlocked countries within SADC?
Yes. It is very important. As I said earlier, Namibia has made a lot of contribution, and the corridor is growing. If you look at how much is being exported from the DRC through the port of Wolfish Bay, the volumes have increased tremendous, particularly post-COVID period.
So the expansion of the port was a good investment in your books?
It is. It is. The expansion of the port of Wolfish Bay is, and I think the best people to tell us on how good is this are the transporters. Yes, the logistic institutions.
And recently, talking about the transported, recently we know that the DRC delegation, of course, visited Namibia on a sort of a road fact-finding mission, as we have retained our top spot for having some of the best quality roads on the continent. How did that mission go, and is there something that they took with them?
Well, I was not part of the mission, but I know they are happy. They continue to, there is a desire to learn from our experience on the road management and transport infrastructure.
Lots of road management and transport infrastructure. In terms of that, I mean, from a private business perspective as well, are there opportunities in that space of developing roads, construction, etc., for Namibian companies, or is that something that we can only look at further down when we have a little bit of more security in as far as that trade facilitation is concerned?
Opportunities to participate in the DRC infrastructure developments are there. Actually, the DRC have a program called the 145 Territories Development. It's a massive country, and there is a lot of infrastructure development projects that are ongoing, and the DRC is willing to accommodate investors from other countries on infrastructure development. These include the construction of infrastructure like schools, roads, and other government institutions that are needed for the government to establish itself in these many areas. But the most important here is road. Road infrastructure is very important for the DRC because currently the country is not connected with itself road-wise. And they have set themselves this goal.
Well, it's time for us to go for another break quickly. Comrade Ambassador, when we come back, we continue and conclude, of course, with the discussion as we're focusing on diplomatic communique for this evening on the Democratic Republic of Congo. When we come back after the break, we continue with more. Stay with us. Welcome back to Diplomatic Communique, the program that looks into our foreign affairs services and, of course, our diplomatic missions. And today we're focused on one of the biggest countries on the continent by land mass, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And Ambassador, is joining me in studio to just unpack that as well. Of course, a lot of focus on the geopolitical issues before the break and the economics. But coming down, we know that the DRC and Namibia have huge cultural ties as well, particularly the music that we love so much. Let's reflect a little bit on the cultural ties between the two countries and the relationship that has developed over the years of this political collaboration between us.
Yes, talking about cultural ties, maybe first let me indicate that Namibia has trained a good number of Congolese who have gone to our universities and other institutions of learning. And these people, when they go back to the DRC, they are the transmission belt of what Namibia is in their country. I do engage with these graduates, and they are really proud of having been trained in Namibia. Some of them are members of parliament, one is a ministers, and others are working in the private sector, and they are doing well. Culture between Namibia and the DRC, I would say, of course, the Congolese, Namibians like Congolese music, that is good. Yeah, but very few Namibians know what is the DRC because few Namibians have lived in the DRC. Very few who have lived there. What we do as part of our engagement, we did this year organize a cultural event to promote our country, and we worked with a group of young artists, Congolese, based in Kinshasa. The event was about coming up with an exhibition, a photo exhibition, portraits drawn by Congolese, and it exhibited Namibian culture, our diversity, our symbols, and we try also to exhibit our reconciliation, how we achieved national unity. And it was a good event that was well attended, and it's something that we are doing on our cultural diplomacy, or what we did.
In terms of this, of course, when you talk about culture, you also have to bring the environment in there as well. And we know that there are some collaborations between the DR Congo and Namibia in as far as environmental sustainability, natural resource management is concerned. What are some of the best practices we can learn from there, and how are the relations going in that particular area?
Yes, environmental diversity and probably protection, I think the two countries differ a bit in that, but the DRC is now getting into this because they have been identified by the United Nations as one of the contributors to environmental protection, the emission of green gas. The DRC, Indonesia, and Brazil, they are working on this. I think from that perspective, Namibia have more experience on environmental management, whether it is fauna or flora protection. Namibia is more advanced, and we are helped by our conservation policy, the introduction of community tourism. I think this can help the Congolese if they adopt this. And of course, a delegation from Namibia Tourism Association visited the DRC in 2021, if my memory can serve me well. And this was at the invitation of the Congolese government. They were really impressed. They visited various areas and they identified a lot of areas that need improvement compared to our level.
Well, in conclusion, Ambassador, thank you so much for making time out to join us. But before I let you go, how should we sum up our bilateral relations with the Democratic Republic of Congo, and perhaps some low-hanging fruits in terms of opportunities for Namibia in that country?
Yes, the DRC, as you indicated, is one of the biggest countries in landmass, but also with a big population. It's a big market. It offers a lot of opportunity for Namibians. It's a friendly country. I would like to invite Namibians to get more interest into engaging with the Congo. There are many things that in Namibia that Namibia can offer to the DRC. And I think with the establishment of the consulate, general consulate of Namibia in Lubumbashi, these exchanges will increase. We will have more Congolese visiting Namibia, and more Namibians going to the DRC. They should not be afraid to visit the DRC. They have the embassy there based in Kinshasa, and they will now have a consulate in Lubumbashi. They should just inform the two offices. If they are going anywhere in the DRC, it's good that they communicate through the Ministry of International Relations and Cooperation that they will be in the DRC. This is very important for us to take care of them in case of any eventuality.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for making time out to join us for today's edition of Diplomatic Communique.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ricardo.
Well, there we have it. That's Ambassador Simeon Uulenga from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's our ambassador there, of course, talking to us about the expansion in terms of bilateral relations between the two countries, with a consulate general set to open before the close of the year in Lubumbashi City. That's today's edition of Diplomatic Communique with me, Ricardo. Until next time, bye-bye.